I simulated the entire 2023 Formula 1 season, but instead of using race results, I used quali results to get the points to see who will win the World Drivers and Constructors Championship. Which team and driver is the best at qualifying in Formula 1? Stay tuned to find out. My name is Chris, welcome back to CF Racing, and enjoy the video. Race 1 in Bahrain was actually won by Lewis Hamilton as he takes his first win since 2021, followed by Max Verstappen and Lance Stroll in P3. That's surprising. From 4 to 10, we have George Russell, Charles Leclerc, Fernando Alonso, Sergio Perez, Logan Sargent, Carlos Sainz, and Valtteri Bottas. There is no point for the fastest lap as it is qualifying, and whoever finishes in first basically has the fastest lap. Race 2 in Saudi Arabia goes to Fernando Alonso with George Russell in P2 and Valtteri Bottas in P3. Max Verstappen qualifies P4, followed by Alexander Albon, Oscar Piastri, Zhou Guanyu, Lando Norris, Nico Hulkenberg, and Zhou Guanyu finishes in P10. I believe it's supposed to say Charles Leclerc, not Zhou Guanyu. I don't know why I put him twice. Race 3 in Australia goes to George Russell, followed by Fernando Alonso and Max Verstappen rounding out the podium. Then we got Lewis Hamilton, Sergio Perez, Lance Stroll, Lando Norris, Carlos Sainz, Zhou Guanyu in P9, and Kevin Magnussen in P10. And Ferrari is having a very rough time to start the year so far. Race 4 in Baku. Surprise, surprise. Logan Sargent qualified on pole. It wasn't even a wet session. I have no idea what happened as I just simulate qualifying. But Pierre Gasly finishes P2 and Max Verstappen finishes P3. Lance Stroll was in 4th, followed by Charles Leclerc, his best result of the season. Valtteri Bottas, Lando Norris, Yuki Tsunoda, Esteban Ocon, and Lewis Hamilton rounds out the top 10. Race 5 in Miami was won by Fernando Alonso, what a legend, followed by Verstappen in P2 and Sergio Perez P3. Oscar Piastri, good qualifying for him, he's P4, followed by Yuki Tsunoda, George Russell, Valtteri Bottas, Lando Norris, Pierre Gasly, and Nico Hulkenberg rounds out the top 10. Race 6 in Imola was won by Max Verstappen, followed by Lewis Hamilton and Pierre Gasly rounding out the podium. Carlos Sainz finishes P4 with Charles Leclerc in P5, Nico Hulkenberg P6, George Russell P7, Sergio Perez P8, Esteban Ocon P9, and Fernando Alonso in P10. Race 7 in Monaco was won by Max Verstappen. He has back-to-back wins this season, followed by Bottas and Alonso in P3. George Russell finishes 4th, followed by Lando Norris, Esteban Ocon, Pierre Gasly, Nico Hulkenberg, Lewis Hamilton, and Zhou Guanyu rounds out the top 10. Race 8 in Spain, Hamilton becomes a 2-time winner this season as he wins in Spain with Albon in P2, great performance from him, and Charles Leclerc P3. Carlos Sainz finishes P4, followed by Fernando Alonso, Lance Stroll, Max Verstappen, Yuki Tsunoda P8, Sergio Perez P9, and Pierre Gasly in P10. Race 9 in my home track, Canada, was won by Charles Leclerc. You love to see it. Lance Stroll finishes P2, the home hero on the podium, absolutely amazing, and George Russell finishes P3. Carlos Sainz in P4, great weekend for Ferrari with Bottas 5th, Hamilton 6th, Perez 7th, Magnussen 8th, Nick De Vries getting his first points of the year in 9th, and Esteban Ocon in P10. Race 10 in Austria was a back-to-back win, but for the other Ferrari driver this time, as Carlos Sainz is winning in Austria with Max Verstappen in P2 and Lewis Hamilton P3. Fernando Alonso finishes P4, followed by Valtteri Bottas, Pierre Gasly, Esteban Ocon, Zhou Guanyu, Charles Leclerc P9, and Logan Sargent in P10. Race 11 in Silverstone was won by Max Verstappen with Lewis Hamilton P2 and Esteban Ocon P3. Zhou Guanyu with a great performance, he finished P4, followed by Lando Norris, Sergio Perez, Yuki Tsunoda P7, Carlos Sainz P8, Nico Hulkenberg P9, and George Russell rounds out your top 10. Race 12 in Hungary, Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen, the only two 3-time winners this season so far, as Hamilton wins in Hungary, followed by Alonso P2 and Sergio Perez P3. George Russell finishes P4, followed by Alex Albon, Charles Leclerc, Max Verstappen P7, not a good performance from him, Lance Stroll P8, Sargent P9, and Carlos Sainz rounds out the top 10. Race 13 in Spa has George Russell taking his second win of the year, followed by Verstappen P2 and Hamilton P3. Albon finishes P4, followed by Lando Norris, Valtteri Bottas, Zhou Guanyu, Charles Leclerc P8, Kevin Magnussen P9, and Nico Hulkenberg in P10. Race 14 in the Netherlands has Hamilton becoming a 4-time winner this season, most of anybody so far, followed by Verstappen P2 and Fernando Alonso P3. Charles Leclerc finishes P4, followed by George Russell, Lando Norris, Carlos Sainz, Pierre Gasly, Alexander Albon, and Sergio Perez rounds out the top 10. Race 15 in Monza is another win for Mercedes, 3 in a row for them, and George Russell takes his third of the year, with Hamilton P2 and Alonso P3. Charles Leclerc finishes P4, followed by Max Verstappen, Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri, Sergio Perez, Kevin Magnussen, and Logan Sargent rounds out the top 10. Probably the biggest surprise of the season, but Zhou Guanyu has pole and wins the race in Singapore as he takes 25 points for Alfa Romeo. Great job for him, with Lance Stroll in P2 and Lewis Hamilton P3. Lance Stroll has been performing quite well this simulation. Max Verstappen finishes P4, followed by George Russell, Pierre Gasly, Lando Norris, Charles Leclerc, Fernando Alonso, and Alexander Albon rounds out the top 10. It seems that George Russell is making a late season comeback as he wins another race as he finishes P1 in Japan, with Lewis Hamilton P2 and Lando Norris P3. Carlos Sainz finishes P4, followed by Max Verstappen, Logan Sargent, Valtteri Bottas, Esteban Ocon, Pierre Gasly P9, and Kevin Magnussen in P10. George Russell goes back-to-back and he won 3 of the last 4 races as he wins at Qatar with Verstappen P2 and Hamilton P3. Fernando Alonso finishes P4, followed by Nico Hulkenberg, Carlos Sainz, Lando Norris, Lance Stroll, then Charles Leclerc, and then Yuki Tsunoda in P10. Race 19 in Circuit of the Americas was another Mercedes driver, and it's Lewis Hamilton taking another win this year with Verstappen P2 and Charles Leclerc P3. Might I add, these are all equal cars, so Mercedes is just very good in qualifying. Lando Norris finishes P4, followed by George Russell P5, Esteban Ocon P6, Albon P7, Bottas P8, Perez P9, and Zhou Guanyu P10. Race 20 in Mexico and Max Verstappen continues his dominance at this track as he wins in Mexico with George Russell P2 and Carlos Sainz P3. Lewis Hamilton finishes P4, followed by Pierre Gasly, Charles Leclerc, Yuki Tsunoda, Valtteri Bottas, Alexander Albon, and Nick de Vries rounds out the top 10. Race 21 in Brazil was won by Max Verstappen with George Russell P2 and Fernando Alonso P3. Sergio Perez finishes P4, followed by Lewis Hamilton, Lando Norris, Valtteri Bottas, Charles Leclerc, Alex Albon P9, and Pierre Gasly P10. Race 22 in the inaugural Las Vegas Grand Prix was won by Carlos Sainz, who would have thought, with Charles Leclerc finishing P2 and Hamilton P3. I'll actually take this podium if it happens in real life, but I would like to see Leclerc win. Max Verstappen finishes P4, followed by Lando Norris, Nico Hulkenberg, Zhou Guanyu, Fernando Alonso, George Russell, and Pierre Gasly rounds out the top 10. And now let's get into the final race in Abu Dhabi. In Abu Dhabi, Max Verstappen comes out on top with George Russell P2 and Charles Leclerc P3. Sergio Perez finishes P4, followed by Lewis Hamilton, Kevin Magnussen, good performance from him, Nico Hulkenberg, Fernando Alonso, Valtteri Bottas, and Carlos Sainz finishes in dead last. So guys, I want you guys to go in the comment section down below and let me know who you guys think won the World Drivers' Championship. Max Verstappen had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 wins this year. George Russell had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wins this year. Hamilton had 5 wins this year. Let me know who you guys think won the championship in the comment section down below. Will it be Red Bull? Will it be Mercedes? Will it be a Ferrari driver? Let's see. And at the end of the year, it was closer than I thought it was going to be, but Max Verstappen still comes out on top with 356 points and a lot of race wins. I believe he had 7. Lewis Hamilton actually outperformed my expectations. He finished P2, and George Russell, he did really well as well and finishes P3. Fernando Alonso finishes P4 with 198 points, and honestly, probably the biggest disappointment in my opinion was Charles Leclerc this simulation, and Ferrari as a whole, as he only took 174 points. It was equal cars as well, so there's no reason why he should not have been up there with Verstappen, Hamilton, and Russell. Carlos Sainz finished P6, with Lando Norris P7, Valtteri Bottas P8, Sergio Perez P9, and a really good performance from Lance Stroll that put him in P10. From 11 to 20, we have Pierre Gasly in 11th, Zhou Guanyu in 12th, Albon in 13th. He had the same amount of points as Zhou. Zhou was really good. Esteban Ocon finishes 14th, with Nico Hulkenberg 15th. Logan Sargent, underrated performance from him. He finished 16th. Yuki Tsunoda 17th, Oscar Piastri 18th, Kevin Magnussen P19, and Nick De Vries finished in dead last with 3 points. Mercedes are back on top of Formula 1 once again as they take 610 points and win the Constructors' Championship with Red Bull P2 and Ferrari P3. Aston Martin finished P4, no surprise, they were really good with Fernando Alonso, and Alfa Romeo up to P5, great job for them. McLaren dropped down to P6, basically completely carried by Lando Norris. Alpine finished P7, Williams were actually P8, HAAS finished P9, and Alpha Tauri were the worst team in this simulation. So guys, that is going to wrap it up for today's video. If you guys did enjoy and you want to see more Formula 1 content like this, hit that like button, subscribe, share with your friends, join my Discord, links in the description. We just passed 1,000 members on there, and with that being said, I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.